Live in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Hello, everyone. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. Wherever you are, welcome to another Hummingbot Live.
Hi
and
there.
today we have Nico with us. If you don't know him from previous lives, he is one of our core developers. And I was with him talking about the Avellaneda strategy. And yeah, he's here today because we're going to talk about creating new strategies with Hummingbot. And if you aren't a developer or if you haven't tinkered around with it, you will find out the Hummingbot. It's a great tool actually to customize it, right? So we have our code is open source, everything is there. We are always working to make the developer documentation as good as possible, trying to improve over time and trying to give tools to the community to create and be creative and create their own strategy. And yeah, Nico talk a bit more about how to start creating your own strategy, what are the basic steps. And let me share something with you, is that we are actually running a hackathon. It's the OpenDefi hackathon, where we have 2 bounties open, right? So it's a good opportunity for us to share some love with the community. And we have 2 bounties. One of them is create a new Hummingbot strategy. So for this one, you are free to get crazy and creative, and anything you think could be done with Hummingbot is a go. So we have some details here, some examples, and feel free to. And already we have some competition if you're interested. And so it's great for developers to tinker around with the code to try new things, and even we want to see a lot of creativity on this. The second one is a bit more restricted. If everyone probably knows that we have an automated market maker strategy that works with Balancer, Uniswap, Terra blockchain, Celo blockchain, and there's Perpetual Protocol, Perpify, but it's a different strategy. It's a perpetual spot arbitrage. But anyway, this is the second bounty, where we want to see improvements to the existing AMM ARB strategy that we have. So I see there's also a lot of things that could be done here, improve the transactions, improve the way the profitability is calculated, the way the bot read the information from the contracts, everything like that. And so yeah, this is the second bounty, and the prize is up for grabs. There's no one here yet, so if you want to think around with the arbitrage strategy with automated market makers, that's a good opportunity to start trying some crazy codes there. Right, so moving on, we're going to talk a bit about the customization of Hummingbot. Sorry, basically we have 2 ways. One is a bit easier, right? It's you can create scripts that we have some functions, specific functions that are open to the user to change some behaviors. For example, if something happens, I can say that for actually I have an example here where you can change the behavior of the bot depending on some parameters. This is interesting. I like this way because this is I would say an easy way for guys like me that and girls like me that knows a bit of Python, but not enough that to create a whole new strategy with all the the requirements and classes and everything that's tied to the core strategy files, right? So this example here is one that I created. I took some time, had some idea that's basically when I am short of one of the inventories on one side, the bot will reduce the spread of one side. It's pretty simple logic, just something that I wanted to try a bit to learn how to make a script. And yeah, it wasn't hard. It's pretty, it was, I wouldn't say easy, because you need some basic Python knowledge to do some interesting stuff here. But also it isn't as hard as, for example, create a brand new strategy. So I would say it's in the middle of the road on the part of customization of the bot. Yeah.
Let me say that. Let me say that we are going to show that it's not so hard to build a strategy from scratch.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the second part where I'll show you.
Nice. Good to know, because I still haven't tried it, but I want to at some point try to create a new strategy myself to see how I go. Right. Okay. So I'll pass the baton to you. So share a screen and let us know how you can start creating the strategy from zero.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes. All good.
Okay. So well, let's start with the like the starting point here. It's going to be some documentation, some guidance, and so let me show you some pointers to specific places for you guys or girls who want to kind of like develop a strategy and want to know like the parts that consist that make a strategy. So here's the starting page, and in here you're going to see there's a documentation link. And well, I'm not going to go through the installation. You can go in here, and there's going to be many different kinds of installation for Windows, Mac, Linux, even if you have a Raspberry, and all of them are going to allow you to customize the code and build yourself a strategy. So going back, we're going to go to the developers part. In the developers part, you're going to see that there's some links, not only for strategies, but also for connectors. If you happen to want to build a new integration with a different exchange to the ones that are already listed. But today we're going to talk about strategies. So there's developing strategies. And in here, you're going to see that this is the organization of how strategies work. This is a little bit more technical, but you shouldn't be scared about it. So there's the strategy as a class that it's going to be inheriting from a base class, and this same scheme is going to be followed by all same strategies. The reason behind this is that there's like a lot of well-developed tools that are already built in the code. So that's going to allow you to get into speed easily and get things done in a very quick way. So I invite you to follow on these links. You have descriptions not only of the code, but also the reasoning behind the strategies and what each strategy is intending to do. Okay.
Yeah, before we move on, there is also, we recently published 2 articles detailing even more the architecture of of Hummingbot, right? So if you take a look at the blog, you'll see Hummingbot Architecture Part 1 and Part 2, and there is even more details about how everything works behind the scenes.
That's right. So I think my keyboard disconnected. No, there you go. Okay, for some reason, my keyboard stopped working. Okay, there you go. I was gonna say that if you don't know where to look for that blog, here in the welcome page, there's a special link for the blog where you'll see the post that Paulo was talking about. He was mentioning, I think, this architecture, Hummingbot architecture, which has like two parts. This is part 2, and going back, there's part 1. Yeah, there. Here, March the 5th. Okay, I'll dive into the code if you don't mind. Here we have this is the tree of files as you would get them from the repo. Also, if you don't know, the repo is in GitHub. It's Hummingbot under Coin Alpha, and in here you'll see in the web page for the development documents how to clone this repo and how to get it locally so you can build the code. But basically, this is the same as we're seeing here. Okay, I'll briefly go through this folder, which I think it's the most important one if you want to know where you are standing in the code. And I'll go very briefly through each folder. So this folder called Hummingbot has most of the moving parts that work on this code. You have the client, which is basically UI. You have the connectors, where you will find the code for, hold on 1 second, I'm gonna close the door.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the connector basically contains the code of the everything related to the connectors that we have working on the bot, basically.
Right. Yes, I got it. I got the door. So you'll have the decentralized connectors. This is very important because, as Paulo mentioned before, there's this strategy related to AMMs, and in here you're going to have the ones mentioned: Balancer, Terra, Uniswap. We have a folder where you'll see the connectors for derivatives. In there, you'll see well, the Binance Perpetual Connector. This is not yet in the release, but it's gonna be pretty soon, like next week in the next release. I'm picking up a development branch, which is not yet the final release, but in 1 week from now, you'll see this connector for DYDX Perpetual. And there's this perpetual protocol connector. And then, well, the spot connectors. Spot connectors are the most widely implemented connectors in Hummingbot as it is right now. So you'll see a lot of them. We're going to be using this for the strategy. Okay. Well, then core is pretty like down level stuff. You shouldn't care too much about it. Maybe if you want to understand how do strategies and connectors work in terms of timing, and how does it all work like as a machine. There's this notion of a clock, or like the heart that beats in a constant way, and it makes like the code move. But put it on hold. Just believe me, that's the heart of the code, and we'll move on with other stuff. Well, this is a little bit legacy. This is for the loggers. We have ways to log information into different text files, or all kinds of logging. well, this is a little bit also legacy. Then you have the model folder, where you will see there's a database running locally, where you would basically store all your orders, all your trades, everything related with the history of your bot. And for that reason, we need some organization of that database. And that's what this code is all about. Well, for the notifiers, you'll have a Telegram notifier. And this is pretty extensible. If you want to build your own notifier, for example, I don't know, some script that will send an email, you can do it right here. Scripts. Paolo mentioned scripts. There's the tree for files related with scripts, where you will get all these methods that will help you kind of like build your scripts, like for example, getting the current meat price, or some average volatility and stuff related to maybe indicators that you want to use to build your own scripts. And we are reaching the strategy folder. This is the place where we are going to work. But let me go through these remaining folders, and we'll deep dive into the strategy folder. This is the templates, and this is related to whenever you save your strategy, you need to have like the list of all the parameters that are going to be saved, predefined in a way it could be saved. Later on, we're going to see for our strategy, which I prepared for this demo, how these templates work. And then, well, this is related to the connectors, where you need some wallet for the decentralized connectors. That's another topic. Maybe we can talk about it in another show, but let's keep it simple. So going into the strategies. So let's suppose we want to build a new strategy. What are the steps to follow? Well, first, you'll need to create a new folder. I'm using PyCharm here. This is something I didn't clarify before, but you can use whatever you want. This is not strictly dependent on your IDE. You can use whichever you feel comfortable with. In this case, we are using PyCharm, and well, here you can create your folder. I have in place a folder which I prepared for this demo, and inside of your folder, you're going to be needing very simple. No, sorry, not this one. Sorry, but a very small list of files. First, this one is the easiest. It's just an empty file. This is Python stuff. Like, you need to have an Init.py if you want to have a folder as a module. Then you'll have the main file where the strategy is going to be written down. But let's first talk about the others. This is if you can see, the name is the name of the strategy, demo simple py _config_map. This is basically the list of the parameters that the strategy is going to need in order to run, right? In this case, I'm going to be using a connector, which is basically which market do I want to trade in. And this might be confusing, but market in this case is related to the trading pair, to the two coins which we're going to be trading in the strategy.
Yeah. So in this case,
Um,
connector is the exchange and market is the trading pair, right?
It's a trading pair, correct. There's going to be a start file where if you broadly see it, it's not much, like it's not very complex. What it's doing is basically lifting the values for the parameters that we just talked about, the connector and the market, from the config map. And then, if needed, you can work on some logic just before creating your strategy. In this case, for example, since market is a string with two coins separated by a dash, then we're going to be obtaining both the base asset and the quota asset from that string. This is pretty simple logic that is going to be related to the way we input these parameters into the strategy. This is something important. I'm stopping here a little bit to talk about this object. This is going to be with you in every single strategy, and this is an object where you store both your exchange. You store the name of the trading pair, and then you're going to be storing the base asset and the code asset. This is important because here we have we start to see some helper functions that are going to be helping us to build the strategy. By grabbing this object, you get free of charge the methods for getting the order book, balance in your wallet for the quote asset, balance in your wallet for the base asset, mid price, well, and more complex things. But
yeah, okay. So for example, if I wanted to save on a variable the value of the current price of Ether, for example, if I'm trading BTC Ether, I would call market.getPrice Ether. Well, how would I use this?
Right, yes. Well, I mean, price is going to be related to two assets, right? So it's going to be the base asset quoted in another coin. For example, we are very used to trade BTC USDT, right? So when you're saying price, what you're actually saying is how many USDTs or tethers are needed to buy one Bitcoin. So in that case, getting the mid price is going to be basically calling some inner logic in our market object using as input which trading pair we want. So in this case, this is the inner logic, right? So this is free for you. You have this method and you don't really need to input all this stuff because you already have this object and you can call this get mid price. And by calling it, you're going to get a number that is going to be representing the price of the market BTC USDT or ETH USDT or whatever you are trading.
Yeah. Okay. So this question now is a new Python noob question. So let's say I wanted to pull the balance of BTC in this case. So let's say I want to I name it BL BTC equals to market trading pair tuple dot market get balance
dot base balance, for example, if you're getting the
balance. Okay.
Yes, and that method is going to return to you the amount in your wallet for that specific asset.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Nice.
Okay. So moving on, we've talked about this place where we store the questions that the strategy is going to ask you in order to get the parameters. We've talked about this empty file, which is just an empty file, and you need to have it there. And we've talked about the starting file, which is going to prepare all the inputs for your object strategy to be created. And now we're talking about the strategy. Remember, I mentioned in the web page that there was this academy, docs developers, and we mentioned in the part of developing strategies that there was some base root for all the classes which were strategies. So in this case, what we see is that our strategy is going to inherit their structure from a strategy.py base class. This strategy.py base class at the same time is inheriting from strategy base class. So there's like a man in the middle here, right? There's strategy base, but then we don't inherit directly from this one, but we actually inherit from strategy.py base. So why is the reason for that? So initially, Hummingbot was a repository of a project which was coded in Python, but also a very big part of it was coded in Cython. Cython is a language in which you will be able to compile your code and get like C++, like very like strong and powerful language as C++ to get things run fast, but it's a pain, I have to admit, to debug. So what we have here is like a class which it's not going to be Cython purely, but it's going to have like regular Python methods. So that's the reason why it's called strategy.py base. So we're going to be using this because our strategy is all based in Python. There's no weird things related with Cython here. You can build your own strategy without even knowing that there's a Cython background. Although if you want to really build something that is very performant and it optimizes execution time, then I would recommend you Cython. But in that case, you will need to know much better what you're doing, and you will need to get a little bit deeper into the code. But let's go with this one. So we're using this class, and this is all the code. This is all the code I wanted to show you. Well, not all the code, but most part of the code, because what do we have here? Remember that I initialized the strategy in here. So the class basically receives just one parameter. This parameter is going to be this famous variable, market trading pair tuple. So that this market trading pair tuple actually has like inside of it some information which is crucial for our strategy. The strategy will basically store that, and then I'm building some inner variables that I'm going to show you why I'm using those.
Yeah, these variables you added on the init, they are local variables only used by the strategy?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nobody else accessing these variables other than the strategy while it's running. So it's kind of like some helpers for me to to store some state of the strategy. Remember that I mentioned that there was like this clock that is kind of like the heart that beats and makes the machine of the strategy and of the connector and basically of all the Hummingbot bot run. And for that, you need to, it's like a sequence of components that are waiting for this heartbeat to pump. So each one, it gets notified, oh, I need to do stuff. I need to tick. I need to go forward like one step. Otherwise, the components wouldn't even interact with each other. So we are like opening like a door for this tick to connect to our strategy and tell the strategy, okay, now it's your time. You need to do stuff. So there's always going to be a method called tick, and this is the place where the action starts, right? So once you have it started, your strategy, nothing will happen until you receive the ticks. So in the ticks, what we have here is, okay, I'm starting the connector. What does it mean to start the connector? Well, the connector has its own methods for initializing, where you will basically send the credentials and you will log in and you will check that everything is working properly. And that's this connector ready variable that I'm using. I want to know when the connector is ready. So initially the connector is going to be equal to false. The connector ready is going to be equal to false. So this is going to be entering here. And I'm going to say, okay, so the connector ready is going to be obtained from this market trading per tuple, the object called connector. Basically, what I'm just checking if, okay, is the connector enabled or initialized? Yes, okay. So if the connector is not ready, I'm just going to be informing the user, okay, connector is not ready, please wait. Otherwise, I'm ready to go. So you will say, okay, so what does this strategy do? Well, it doesn't do anything so far. Let me try this. You want to try this? Let's try this.
Yeah.
I'm just compiling. Okay. This is something you will need to do if you are modifying some of the non-Python code, the Cython code. But in this case, nothing was compiled. So I'm going to be running the Hummingbot in my local folder. This is hbot live. Okay, you need to activate your environment. And once you have that, oh, by the way, I'm seeing some comments. Okay, people are talking. We will then stop a little bit to answer these questions.
Yeah, no, if I'll try to answer some questions as they come up. If there is something that I don't know how to answer, I'll pass it up to you. Don't worry.
Okay. So while it's okay, so it has started, not the strategy, but the bot, right? Let's recap on what we just done in terms of code. We've created a new folder. We've created some files into this folder, which if you are a little bit confused or you want some guidance, you can go step by step in the documentation how to build these files, or you can basically check out other strategy, like for example, liquidity mining. You will see that it has a start, it has a folder, a file called just like the strategy, it does have a config map, and it also has init. It has some additional stuff, but let's keep it simple. So with this, you will.
What I mean
Yes.
is that the essential part to create a strategy is only these 4 files, right? The start, the init,
Correct.
the config map,
Yes.
and the strategy file itself, right?
Correct.
Anything else you
Correct.
add there is extra.
It's extra. Correct. I actually lied to you, but yeah, I'll go through this real quick. So just because things like a strategy is saved in a local file, we need some template for how this configuration is going to be saved. So you also need to create a template for the strategy config file. This is pretty simple. So this is just like a placeholder that is saying, okay, this strategy will have a parameter for, well, every strategy has in this config file one parameter for the name of the strategy, of course. Then you'll have connector and market. This makes sense, right? Because what we just defined is demo simple by that we're going to have connector, market, and strategy. So basically, this is super trivial. This is just a placeholder. So then it's not 4 but 5 files. Not 4 by 5 files. One of them, it's an empty file. So we don't count them. It's just 4 files. Okay, so now that we have the Hummingbot, let's do well the create command. If you already have visited the documentation page, you will know that in order to create a new strategy, you basically need to run create. Okay, so which strategy? Well, the strategy is called as the folder and as the main file, demo simple by. Well, so which, well, this is not for liquidity mining. This is a copy paste. If you remember, these are the questions that were stated here. So I forgot to change this. I copy pasted it from another strategy, but connector to use for this demo. We're going to be using, well, I took the job of setting up my wallet. If you don't know how to do that, again, I recommend you to use the documentation page. I'm going to be using Binance. And for market trading pair, well, I know that I have USD coin. So I'm going to be using the pair ETH USDC for this demo.
Why not Doge?
Everybody loves Doge, right? Well,
to the moon.
I know, but for this time, let's go with me. I have it
Okay.
ETH and USDC. And that's all. Now it's like the name to be used to save this strategy. Well, this is the name by default. I'm going to go with this one. And that's all. I didn't show you, but I do have the wallet already prepared. So I have some ETH, I have some USDC, and I have some USDT. Anyways, remember that so far the strategy does nothing. It just starts the connector. Let's do what the strategy is supposed to be doing. Start. Okay, that's all. we can go home. No. This is the initialization that I was talking about. This is some messages that are printed, but remember that I had this message called, okay, connector is ready, trading started. So that's the message that I get confirming that everything went well. So I'm not gonna keep you there. I'm going to be doing some stuff here. So let's stop this. Let's exit. And let's add something else to the code. Oh, well, so just like a cuisine program, I do have something else stored. Like, you know, when the chef says, okay, so I have in here something else already prepared. I do have some code already prepared. I'm going to be copy pasting this, but I'll explain what does this code do. Okay, let's go first with this method. This method. Okay, so this is the line, and this should go here. So this method did complete by order. This is not random. This is something that it's actually living inside of the py-based strategy for class. So what I'm doing here is redefining the behavior of that method. This is very cool. If you remember that I talked about this object, which it had some cool methods already done that would facilitate your developing of a strategy. Well, there's also inside of the class for the strategy, lots of methods which are very useful for getting some actions done. So you can, for example, cancel a pending order. All these methods that start with did means like we are asking as a question. So was this order filled? And if that's the case, we will enter into this method and we can code whatever we want to do if the order was filled, or if the order was created, or if well, a sell order was created, if the order failed. So basically, this is like placeholders for you to modify if you want to program the logic that happens whenever there's an event happening that some order got filled, expired, failed, canceled, whatever. So what I'm doing here is to code some logic that will, in case a buy order is filled, we are going to cheer up. We're going to say, okay, it has filled. No, just that. So this is going to be running because of this other code that I added, which is basically, this is my variable, right? Pop if equals false. So if it's equal to false, we're getting the mid price with this method that we talked about, and we save it in this variable. Then we say, okay, buy with specific market. Again, this is a method that was already, okay. Let me show you. Buy with specific market. This is a method that comes from the strategy base class. So the one below or above strategy py base. And this method basically what it does is, okay, you send it which trading pair and market do you want to execute the order, which amount, what kind of order, what price to submit the order. And these parameters are really defaulted, so I'm basically not setting them up. So what I'm doing is, for this market, submitting an order of 0.05 ETH. This is a buy order. limit using the mid price as the price for the order. Quite straightforward, not rocket science here. We're just using already built methods. And once I've submitted this order, basically what I'm going to do is say, okay, I submitted the order. So once I did that, but if it's now equal to true. So for the next ticks, since this is true, we're not going to be buying in every tick more and more if this just happens once. And that's all. We are submitting an order for buying. And once the order is completed, we've coded this method to celebrate that our order has filled and that now we have a little bit more if, which is right now pumping. And it's over 3,500, I think. So let's rerun Hummingbot with this new code. And
yeah, okay. So before we run, we'll go back a bit.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so show me the Strategy.py base.
Yes. I'm going to minimize this and okay. So you remember that we talked about
Strategy
let me
base,
go
yeah,
to the
yeah,
top.
this one. So basically, each of these functions or what's called inside the object, what's the name of
Yeah,
the
methods,
functions?
functions.
Methods.
It's okay.
Okay, so each of this, I basically do something or pull some information for the exchange that can be used inside the strategy, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so basically everything you can do inside the strategy is kind of there on pointed from this file on the code.
Yes, correct. Besides the like the bureaucratic thing of having, for example, the start, tick, stop, and these methods which are needed for the strategy to run, you are offered already defined methods for picking up these events, as I mentioned before, of orders like getting filled or getting failed, etc. But also actions to do like buy or sell, sell with specific market, which with just a bunch of parameters, you will be already submitting orders. You can also cancel orders. And yeah, that's basically the basic set of actions to perform and events to capture in order to build your own strategy. This is all visible from our class because our class inherits from strategy.py base, which at the same time inherits from this class strategy base. So
nice. Yeah, it's kind of the same with scripts, right? There is the script base where I can see all the functions that can be performed by scripts.
That's right. That's right. You have the script base, which is like your tool set for all the things that you would eventually do in your script, like getting some volatility or doing something if your order was completed, or yeah, notifying something to the user, which in this case might be to the console, but it could also be to Telegram, as I mentioned before. So, okay, I've talked too much. So let me show you the strategy. Okay. So there's one cool thing here, in which we already created our strategy, so we can now not create a new one, but actually import the one we created. So for doing that, we import, and this is the file we save with the strategy. Okay. If we type config, we're getting, okay, so this is a global configuration. This is not related with the strategy per se. And here we have the three parameters we talked about. So the name, which connector, which pair. And let's hit start.
Oh, now it's creating orders.
Yeah. Come on. What it's not doing is getting the order field. It might, the price might move, so we are not getting the order field. But okay, so let me start.
Don't worry.
Let me try one more time. Yeah, it happens. There you go. Again, start. Hey, hooray. We got it filled. I didn't show the balance before, but we can compare that. Now we have some more ETH here in our wallet since we bought this amount of 0.05. Yeah, I bought it before once, 0.05, just to test this before our call. And this is the second time I'm buying 0.05. So now we have 0.01. And yeah, that's all. Of course, this is a very basic strategy, but you can, you have all these Legos, and now that you can use all these tools, you will be able to try whatever you want. Of course, for this example, we used real money. We used a wallet in Binance, but you can still run it in paper mode. Paper mode is paper trade, sorry. Paper trade is a mode where you don't really use money in real life, but basically fictitious money.
Yeah, so then if any strategy that I create works, basically technically would work with paper trade, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So we could run it again in paper trade. Okay, so we're gonna see some errors because the paper, I didn't like prepare the code for the paper trade, but it's submitting the order, and eventually if it gets filled, it's going to be shown. So getting the order filled in this paper trade mode means that the price basically like moved to the value that you set. And yeah,
nice.
I really hope this is good enough to to get an idea.
Yeah, I think I'll try to create something with it. Yeah. Now that I saw this demonstration, I could be wrong here, but I feel that it might not be that different from scripts, or there is some key difference there. I mean, if I kind of am able to create a script, I wouldn't have that much difficulty to create a strategy. So my question is more like, what would be the key difference between creating a script and creating a strategy?
Well, it's like a two-side problem. On one side, it's going to be a little bit more simple. It's going to be more ready for you to build your code by just creating just one file. We've talked about all these files needed for a strategy to be created. Well, for the script, with just one file, you can get the behavior you want. But on the other hand, you have a limited set of things to work with. So scripts will only be able to modify some stuff from your market making strategy, but not everything. Let me give you a concrete example. So let's suppose that I need to, or I want to have a behavior based on the order book, the current order book the market has. Not the price, but the orders that go below in bid and ask order, like from the top going below. Let's suppose that I want to see, for example, if like, I don't know, the bid orders are moving away or getting closer to the mid price. So then I can say, okay, so this behavior means something to me. I want to build a strategy based on that. So you wouldn't be able to do that with a script. You would also need a strategy, and you wouldn't be able to do it with a script if you want, for example, to work with multiple trading pairs. So there's a very good example for this, which is the liquidity mining strategy, which can work with many trading pairs at the same time. There's no way you can reproduce that behavior by using a script. And that's just two examples that come out of my head. So on one side, you will be working with a simpler code base, but you will be restricted into which things you can do and which things you can't. With the strategy, maybe it's just a little bit more of effort to start, but I have shown you it's not so hard. It's not so hard. And once you are there, you'll be able to do whatever you want, and you will be able to submit a code for the bounty, and you will be able to win some prizes too.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, yeah. Oh, so what I would say is that when I think of scripts, I would think as a tool, a way to change the behavior of a specific strategy, right? So when you think about the strategy, I'm thinking more about building the whole logic that it would handle the trades, the order creation, everything like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
And with the scripts, you're only tweaking something which is already in one way. You will only be tweaking some parameters. You cannot change the whole way the strategy works.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. I'll definitely take some time to try to create some random strategies there. Yeah, that's cool. That's good to know.
If you earn some money, you need to give me some shared fee, because I told you.
Don't worry. I'll find some NFTs to send you. That's a new money, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
So,
great.
cool. Any closing thoughts on that? Any tips for the hackathon or anything that's
we've built everything from scratch, but I got to tell you, I cheated. So I copy pasted from other strategies. I really recommend you to cheat here. So you can do not all the code from scratch, but actually copy. I don't know. I really like this liquidity mining strategy for starting a pure Python strategy, just because this strategy is pure Python and it's very simple in terms of the amount of files that it has. If you want to go with the Cython, well, then you can copy from the Avellaneda market making strategy, which, as you can see, files end up with D and X. That's Cython. So that's spooky. Nah, not spooky. It's really very simple, very similar to pure Python, just with some tweaks.
Yeah, but I definitely
go
won't
ahead.
use that for now. That's too much for me.
Go ahead and copy paste. You can start by incrementally modifying it. So you say, okay, so how does this strategy work? I want to do something similar, but maybe change a little bit how does it work. So where would you start? Well, I would recommend you. We talked about this heart that makes everything move. So that heart is the tick method. I'm looking for the tick method. Here you go. This is Cython, so it's not tick, but C-tick. And here it says, okay, so are markets ready? If they're not ready, do this stuff. Is there anything going wrong? Should I report something? Okay. And then, okay, I'll do this stuff, which is related to this strategy. But the model, the way these strategies are structured is always the same. So you won't be able to, you won't get lost if you follow these rules.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
Yeah. So am I right to say that the advantage of using the Cython part of the code will be to make it the executions a bit faster? Because one thing that I learned about Python is that although it is kind of easier to learn to create stuff on Python, it's the downside of it is that it makes the execution of the code a bit slower than C++, for example, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We do have internally, this is not open source, but we have a back testing tool that we use to test like how well do strategies perform. And it's very important to be able to run really in a quick way and really fast your strategy if you want to test it over a very long period. But that's not the final goal for the end user strategies. So in 99.9% of the cases, you won't really need the Cython code.
Yeah, it depends a bit on how much speed you would need to, how many milliseconds you would need to be faster than anyone else. Yeah. But I think that it's a very specific the HFT part of the trading. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah. All right. That was a good one. That got me excited to mess around with Python again. I'll try to do something with it. Okay. All right. So I don't see many questions. I have a question about the.
So one thing. Let's suppose that you get into this, you read the documentation, and you're still needing some help. So we have a Discord channel, which is 24/7 open for support and assistance, not only for users using existing strategies, but also for devs trying to build their own strategies. And you will always get some good info there.
Yeah, I have to say we have a lot of people in the community already doing a lot of interesting stuff to the code. So definitely it's a good place if you want to learn how to deal with the code. Well, that's it then. I guess that it's a go, it's a bye, and bye everyone, and see you around, and happy trading everyone, and good profits.
Happy trading.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.